It is a Monday edition of Inside Coverage here. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Andrew Siciliano. Inside Coverage here Monday through Thursday with the how and the why. Everything you need to know around the National Football League. Download us, listen to us on your favorite podcast platform, like and share and subscribe and all those fun things. Watch us on Yahoo Sports TV. The headline for week number 2 after a Thursday night game that saw Jaden Daniels banged up and then a Sunday night schedule or Sunday afternoon schedule that saw a whole bunch of injuries is exactly that. Gentlemen, Frank Schwab, Charles Robinson, it is the quarterback injury Monday, week 2 edition of Inside Coverage. Not, Charles, exactly what we thought we would be doing, but it's a part of the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, carnage early on and not minor names that we're talking about here. You know, J.J. McCarthy, obviously, young piece for the Minnesota Vikings. Now they're looking at multiple weeks without him. Joe Burrow, the headline everywhere, Joe Burrow looking like he's going to be out a number of months. Jaden Daniels with a knee sprain. You really need to have 64 quarterbacks in this league. I don't think there's any doubt when you look at what happened in week 2, you have to have a reliable starter. And I think that's part of the reason why we've seen over the last few years starter backup money really start to swell in terms of the reliable names on the list. You may not carry 3 quarterbacks, but you dang well better carry 2. And that second one needs to be reliable enough to get paid. And there's a reason why you're starting to see some of these backup quarterbacks will shuttle around last, 10, 12 years. There's good money to be made if you're a reliable player. And we're going to find out pretty quickly for a couple of teams that have playoff hopes how reliable those backups are.
Yeah, and to piggyback off that, no team wants to trade its backup quarterback. Everybody's online today saying, "Oh, the Bengals are going to trade for this guy," and Minnesota can trade for this guy. Teams don't want to trade their backup quarterback. They're a valuable commodity in this league. Quit fantasizing about this. I feel terrible for the Cincinnati Bengals, who we'll talk more about. But if you lose your quarterback on September 15th for 3 months, you're basically just screwed. Like, Jake Browning might play great, keep them in the race, but there's no magical cure out there. You're not finding, like, Kurt Warner 1999 on the street. Like, it's just, that's not a realism. It's just not going to happen. And you talked, with all these injuries, add Brock Purdy into the mix, too. You're talking about multiple teams missing their quarterbacks for multiple weeks here. This isn't just, J.J. McCarthy might miss a week and then he'll be back. It's probably going to be maybe a month for him. And they're not going to rush along a young quarterback. The Commanders aren't going to put Jaden Daniels out there if they think he's in trouble. So, yeah, it's not just 1 week and they'll be back. This is multiple weeks for some of these teams who are already in scramble mode. We're not even into late September yet.
All right, well, let's set the table here and let's set up exactly what we're talking about. Last year, there were 59 different quarterbacks that started regular season games in the National Football League. Right now, we're at a minimum of 35 that are going to start as we head into week number 3. We have Mac Jones, who has already started and won a game in place of the injured Brock Purdy. The Niners went into New Orleans on Sunday, and they won. They beat the Saints. Carson Wentz, we know, is going to start this week for the Vikings. Kevin O'Connell said that. J.J. McCarthy is injured again. He lasted a game and a half, basically 2 full games. He got through the Sunday night loss at Atlanta, but he has a high ankle sprain, and he is likely going to miss multiple weeks, which means Wentz is now going to start for his 6th different team in 6 years. And then there is Jake Browning as well, because Joe Burrow could be out as many as 3 months. Jaden Daniels, as we sit here on Monday evening, is a question mark for week 3 for the Commanders. It's a knee day-to-day, says Dan Quinn. If he can't go, it's Marcus Mariota. And then in New York, Tyrod Taylor could have to go for the Jets because Justin Fields is officially in concussion protocol. It's hard for anyone, although it's not impossible. We've seen it before, but it's hard for anyone, maybe especially a quarterback, to make it through concussion protocol in time to play the following Sunday. So we are already at a quarterback crisis point. Let's talk about the Bengals, because they are the one of all the teams we just listed here with the longest term injury for their quarterback, Joe Burrow, and the team that had its eyes, not that the others don't, but had its eyes truly on another trip to the Super Bowl representing the AFC. Burrow had an ACL years ago. He had the freak wrist injury in 2023. That's when Jake Browning stepped in and actually played well down the stretch. And then this now is turf toe. Most turf toe injuries don't need surgery, but this one evidently does. And it's not even going to happen immediately. Reportedly, they may have to wait a week or two for the swelling to go down, and then you do the surgery, and then it is a 12 to 14 week recovery point, which raises the question, will Joe Burrow actually play again this year? And you have to say out loud that there's a reasonable chance that he is done for the year, because unless the Bengals are truly in it, they have a decision to make if and when he is ready to get back. And there's a long conversation to be had here about, do the Bengals spend enough money on their offensive line? Are they doing Joe Burrow right? Are they wasting an opportunity with a generational talent at quarterback? We all know their defensive issues last year. They tried to clean those up. They brought in a new DC so far. The results are better. They're 2-0. Zach Taylor got a little defensive today when asked about Burrow being hurt again. Take a listen.
Zach, do you feel like when you think about this injury happening to Joe and another injury you guys are dealing with, that you have to organizationally start to rethink how you protect Joe and the way that you guys have gone about that?
It's unfortunate that this happened. But again, that's part of football, and that's what's going to happen. Guys are in the pocket, guys are moving around. I don't know how a turf toe injury fully happens, how you got to get hit or stepped on. I know that potentially he could have been clean for 99% of the game, and the one play is where this happens. And so I get it. I understand where people are going to come from. It's going to be very attacking of us and our style of play. That's got us to a Super Bowl and an AFC championship and 2 division titles and won a lot of games for us. So we're always evaluating how we can protect our players and put them in the best position possible. So I take accountability for that. And if people want to blame me for putting them in a position, I'm fine taking that.
I don't think anyone's blaming Zach Taylor here. Obviously, they give a lot of power to their quarterback. He's as good as standing back there and reading a defense and moving his chess pieces around and playing the game as any quarterback in the NFL. I think more the criticism would be for Duke Tobin and that front office. But this idea, Charles, that they have not addressed the offensive line, I find silly. They went out, they spent big money on Orlando Brown. He's your left tackle. Amarius Mims is their right tackle. He was a first-round pick a year ago. Now, you can question the middle of their offensive line, and the pressure when Burrow got hurt Sunday was up the middle. Ted Karras is a veteran center who they just extended. Dylan Fairchild is a rookie playing left guard, and Dalton Reisner is a veteran, a journeyman, I think at this point you could say, at right guard. So maybe you could say up the middle there's an issue, but they've spent money. It just hasn't necessarily been on the offensive line.
Yeah, and I mean, look, do you want perfection? I mean, if you want to go out and you want to sink, $70, $80 million a year into your offensive line and in AAV contracts, maybe $90 million a year in AAV contracts. I mean, go look at, the Philadelphia Eagles, look at the Detroit Lions. Sure, you can go that route, but even then, it's hard to get to that point. You have to draft the right people. You have to be able to groom them into positions where they're ready for a second contract. You don't want to go out and just spend in free agency to add pieces. And look, I'm sorry, no offensive line right now is really in superb shape in the NFL. Okay, right? The Detroit Lions just trounced the Chicago Bears, but it came after week 1 where we sat there and said, what is wrong with the interior of the Detroit Lions line? It looks awful. There's miscues. Penei Sewell's getting handed his lunch by Micah Parsons. Well, Penei Sewell's one of the best right tackles in the game. He's an all-pro. Okay, so...
Or how about the Bears and the Vikings? They spent money on their O-lines in the offseason and both looked bad through 2 weeks.
This is really... It should have been a question put to Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings, right? Because there were times in that game... Now, I'm not going to say J.J. McCarthy played well against the Atlanta Falcons, but there were a couple plays where he got absolutely folded up in the pocket with missed assignments straight up from that offensive line. Now, if you want to ask then, in that scenario, hey, do you have to rethink how you're doing this? That's one thing. But if it's an issue of a quarterback getting a turf toe, which is often you get stepped on, right, by an offensive line, it'll be a dirty pocket. Something happens. It's not the first time, by the way, in the past that Joe Burrow has gotten stepped on. There have been other notable moments where we kind of were all white knuckling it when we saw Joe Burrow go down after getting stepped on by either an offensive or a defensive player. These are things ultimately that happen. You just sort of have to deal with them as an NFL team. I think I understand where the frustration comes from, because you're sitting there saying, how many times are we going to deal with Joe Burrow ending a season because of an ACL or a wrist injury? Now, you have a turf toe injury. It comes down to the health issue with Joe Burrow and whether or not he can just simply be a player that can be counted on for the full balance of a season. And frankly, I think it's okay now to say, right now, no, Joe Burrow has not been a player who has had health and can be counted on a full season as an NFL player.
Yeah, I'm fully with Zach Taylor here, and this is just bad luck. It's unfortunate. It's part of the game. It's really, really unlucky that it keeps happening to Joe Burrow, one of the best quarterbacks in the game, and it stinks. But we're moving to goalposts on the Bengals if all of a sudden you're ripping them for saying, well, you haven't done enough to protect Joe Burrow. The narrative in the offseason was, well, you got to re-sign Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. They did that. And then it was, well, this defense isn't going to take Joe Burrow to the Super Bowl. You got to improve the defense. They use a first-round pick on a pass rusher. You can't fill all the holes in the NFL. And to Andrew's point, they have invested in the offensive line. These are just freak things. And when you drop the quarterback back 500 times in a season like Joe Burrow did last year, you're going to get hit a few times. Like that, it just happens. And that's part of the game. And you're not going to all of a sudden say, nope, we're going to stop. We're going to drop Joe Burrow back 25 times and hand the ball off 40 times. Like that's nonsense. It's just bad luck. It stinks that it happened to the Bengals. I've ripped the Bengals. We've all ripped the Bengals for their cheapness and this and that. And that. I'm not ripping them for this. This is just bad luck, and it stinks. But yeah, I mean, Joe Burrow he's had unbelievable. Like, these are just kind of freak things that have happened to him. I don't look at him as one of these injury-prone, quote-unquote, guys. I just view if a guy has had a star-crossed career so far. I mean, we're talking, like, I think this is his 7th season, and 3 of them have been heavily impacted by injuries. That's not good. You just hope for better health for him going forward.
Yeah, and I got to figure out what to do. Because, again, they're 2-0, right? The Steelers are 1-1. They look human. I mean, they honestly, they look like a 9-8 team, which is what they always
Defense
are.
is bad.
Joking aside, I saw the Ravens yesterday in person. They're still figuring out their defense, although they shut down the Browns. They have all the weapons offensively. They'll be there at the end of the conversation, certainly, as well. But the Bengals have to take advantage of their 2-0. Is there a trade to make? Now, there's Jameis. Let's look at my list here. There's Kirk Cousins. Does anyone want to call the Falcons? Is it worth picking up the phone about
here's what's going to happen, Andrew.
Hold on. Can I interest you in Andy Dalton, Frank? And I'm not kidding.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm not kidding.
Oh, my goodness. So let's say the Bengals trade for Kirk Cousins. The Falcons aren't giving him away. We just talked about teams value to backup quarterbacks, and the price was expensive for Kirk Cousins.
But Joe Burrow. You're spending all this
trade
cash
for Kirk Cousins. Right. You go and trade for Kirk Cousins. But then what's going to be the thing next year? Joe Burrow's going to get hit. You're going to say, why didn't the Bengals use draft picks on offensive linemen? Yeah, because you traded them for Kirk Cousins.
Guys.
Like they're just screwed. That's all there is to it. Jake Browning's their guy, and they got to live with it.
Yeah. Look, Browning, I'm not going to say Browning had a great day, obviously, against the Jaguars. He threw, a couple of picks. But look, go back to 2023. Andrew talked about that season when Burrow went out, and Jake Browning had 7 starts. He went 4-3. He completed 70% of his passes. I think his touchdown interception ratio was like 12-7. He was a decent backup quarterback ultimately during that season. And I'll tell you this. And this tells me a lot. When Brian Callahan went to the Tennessee Titans, there was an alternative timeline in Titans history where if Will Levis had fizzled out and they didn't end up with the number 1 pick in the draft, that the Titans could have found a way to try and get Jake Browning and bring him aboard. Yeah. I do think that Brian Callahan thought this guy could be a serviceable starter in the NFL, maybe a bridge starter, but like not a bottom of the barrel starter in the NFL. He does have ability. I think he's 29 at this point, ultimately in his career. He's already there. He knows the system. This is what you groom a player like this for. He's in this position to pick up the mail. Now, you don't want it to happen. It's unfortunate that it did happen. But as Andrew said, okay, let's look out there at the trade options. If Kirk Cousins is a trade option, I can tell you right now, the Atlanta Falcons are going, okay, well, now we have some leverage. We don't want to pay all this money, to remaining on Kirk Cousins' deal. Now we have the leverage to force you to pay some of Kirk Cousins' contract if you're going to come and get him, and you're going to have to give up an asset too. This is that's desperation, and that's what the Atlanta Falcons are hoping for. I don't think the Cincinnati Bengals should be desperate here. I think they should roll with what they have, which is a player who's familiar with their skill position players and has shown in the past he can be a decent spot starter for them.
I agree.
Well, they're going to have to bring another body regardless. So, yeah, Zach Taylor did say they're going to have to bring in another body because right now it's Jake Browning and Brett Rippon. That's it. And Brett Rippon, who I like, is the guy that caused Sean McVay to basically say never again and go sign Carson Wentz in 2023 off the couch after Brett Rippon had to start a game and lose a game, a winnable game that affected the Rams in the standings in Green Bay. So it's Brett Rippon behind him. I'd go trade for Jameis. I mean, there's no reason the Giants have been holding on to Jameis Winston other than one exactly like this. They don't need him. He's affordable. He is a trade piece. Throw Sam Howell out there. Tanner McKee gets healthy. Go trade for Sam Howell if the Eagles and Howie want to flip that and get a quick return on that investment. So they're going to have to find somebody. I'm guessing, though, it's somebody on the couch. But we have as you said, Charles, a backup quarterback crisis. I don't know if crisis is the right way to say it. He's the most valuable guy on your roster. So when you have a good one, you pay to keep a good one. Because if there's any guarantee in this league is that you will need that guy at one point during a season.
Yeah, and not only that, I mean, if you're sitting there and you're, Daniel Jones, Mac Jones, Geno Smith, some of these other guys who have been backup quarterbacks, this is why agents work so hard to say, okay, you're going to be a backup. You're going to have to take that route now. It's unfortunate, but let's make sure we put you in a position where we can get you into place where you can put down some good film and potentially get an opportunity to be a starter elsewhere. Again, Daniel Jones went to Minnesota for a reason, even though it wasn't, he wasn't going to ultimately play. It was, you'll go to Minnesota, you'll impress enough there that you'll be in play to potentially be their starting quarterback if you can't be a starter elsewhere. There was a reason why Baker Mayfield went through the LA Rams for the short stint that he ultimately did. I think everybody's looking at Baker Mayfield now and saying, this is the path ultimately. If you're forced into a situation where you're either a spot starter or a gap filler, go to a place where you can get snaps, where you can be with a coach who knows what they're doing, and generate some good tape, generate some eyeballs on you that can get you somewhere else into a starting job. I mean, look, even Justin Fields going to the Pittsburgh Steelers is another good example. I mean, he parlays that ultimately. Even he only starts 4 games for the Steelers. He ultimately parlays that into a 2-year contract with the Jets. As you said, Andrew, like backup quarterbacks are beyond valuable right now. And if you have any talent whatsoever at the position, where you put yourself as a chess piece now matters because you can parlay that into a starting job.
Looking at the Week 3 schedule, you already have the Bengals and the Vikings here. The Jake Browning Carson Wentz Bowl scheduled for 1 o'clock Eastern time in the early window. It would be Tyrod and the Jets on the road at Baker and the Bucks. And then if Jaden Daniels can't go, Marcus Mariota against one of his former teams with the Raiders coming to town. And then Mac Jones against the suddenly upstart 2-0 Arizona Cardinals with Kyler Murray, who hung on to win somehow. Those are your Week 3 matchups already with all these quarterback injuries. It is still Tua Tagovailoa in charge in Miami and Mike McDaniel as well. Coming up next on Inside Coverage, is it getting late early in South Florida? Frank, Charles, I'm Andrew. Don't go anywhere. Inside Coverage on Yahoo, Andrew Siciliano, Frank Schwab, and Charles Robinson. Just want to put a button on that backup quarterback conversation here. And I said 6 teams in 6 years for Carson Wentz. He started Week 18 last year, guys, for the Chiefs in Denver. Remember, the Broncos won that, and they got into the postseason and kept Joe Burrow and the Bengals out. Go back and watch quarterback. By the way, you see Burrow on his couch watching, saying, hey, it's not up to us, and it's our fault that we're sitting in this position. In 2023, he started a game at the end of the season, Week 18 as well, for the Rams when they already knew their playoff fate. In 2022, obviously had half a season with the Commanders. In 2021, the collapse with the Colts down the stretch, the whole COVID testing thing, and didn't make the playoffs and whatever. And then obviously 2020 for the Eagles. So this will be 6 years, Charles, a 6th different team. Why does something tell me that Kevin O'Connell is going to make Carson Wentz look really good?
Well, I mean, there's some familiarity. I mean, remember Carson Wentz had a cup of coffee with the LA Rams when Kevin O'Connell was there, which is, ultimately I think how Wentz ends up with the Minnesota Vikings after, Daniel Jones ends up leaving for the Indianapolis Colts. They turned toward Wentz immediately. It took them a while to sign him. There were cap reasons for that, but I think that is ultimately who they were focused on, and part of the reason why Aaron Rodgers was never someone who was in play in Minnesota. But look, the thing about Carson Wentz that's really interesting here is he's not talentless. I mean, he's got a body of work early on in his career at Philadelphia where he's got mobility, he's athletic, he's got a good arm. The thing with Carson Wentz is he just made too many plays that were off schedule, on the fly craziness that would get him, into situations where coaching staffs would say, we can't coach this out of him. I remember talking to people in Philadelphia where they thought he was one of the most stubborn quarterbacks they had ever coached. And they had a multitude of ex-quarterbacks in that organization who were trying to, get him to turn a corner. And they would coach him on mechanics. They would coach him on, not reaching too much for plays that had mostly negative outcomes, and then he would go on the field and his mechanics would get sloppy and loose. He would reach for those plays again that you just look at and be like, you can't start this guy when he's throwing pick sixes, when he's throwing balls basically behind his head as he's getting sacked. If Kevin O'Connell, though, at this stage in his career, and I kind of look at this as sort of like a Geno Smith situation. When Geno Smith got far enough into his career, had experienced different organizations, had worked with different staffs, his game settled down and he started to turn a corner. If Kevin O'Connell can do that with Carson Wentz, I think there is a chance that these Vikings, he could pull a Sam Darnold. These Vikings could get on a roll the next few weeks. And all of a sudden the staff says, hey, wait a minute. Let's just stay in our comfort zone here. We have something. It looks like JJ's going to need some more time, to cook. Like he's getting cooked on the field at this stage. Let's be a little more conservative here, and we'll lean into a guy who does have some talent. So Carson Wentz, he's got an opportunity. If nothing else, he has an opportunity here to make a late, I think, career play at potentially becoming a starter again in the NFL.
I totally agree with you here. And I mean, we don't even have to stretch very far for a comparison. Sam Darnold last year. I mean, right. Wentz, and if you want to be honest about this, anybody laughing about, Carson Wentz, he's Carson Wentz, blah, blah, blah. Carson Wentz pre-2025 has had a better career by far than Sam Darnold pre-2024. Like Sam Darnold has never been a viable quarterback in the NFL. Carson Wentz has been. You get into this hive, the Kevin O'Connell, you're throwing to Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, Jordan Addison's going to come back soon. All of a sudden, it's like, what if Carson Wentz plays at an above average level? Because it's not just Wentz, it's how bad McCarthy's look. Let's have an honest conversation about JJ McCarthy. He has played two of the worst defenses in the NFL, at least expectation-wise. Maybe the Falcons are going to be much better, but the Bears just gave up 52 to the Lions. McCarthy's played 8 quarters and 7 of them have been terrible. And that's not all his fault. I guess the offensive line's been shoddy to start the season. They're still getting things together. But Sunday night, McCarthy just didn't look like he's ready. And I was a guy all offseason saying, hey, give JJ McCarthy a shot. He's the 10th pick of the draft. They drafted him for a reason. He doesn't look ready. And so if Wentz plays at an above average level, and let's say they go 2-1, 3-1 when McCarthy's out, at some point you're just like, well, I don't know that we could just turn it back over to McCarthy and have him lead us to 6 points against the Atlanta Falcons at home. Like that's a level he's at. So I agree with you that at very least, if Carson Wentz plays at an above average level over the next few weeks, which, I mean, if he plays at the Sam Darnold level, there's not even a question. He's going to keep the job. But if he plays a little bit less than that, I think it can make it a really interesting and messy conversation in Minnesota of, JJ, you just got to sit the rest of this year too. I mean, it's at least on the table. There's a path to that. And I'm interested to see how it breaks out.
I get what you're all saying, and I can see Carson Wentz playing well because Kevin O'Connell has proven himself in his brief time as an NFL head coach to be great at setting up a game plan and giving his quarterback the keys to a smooth riding vehicle. But if Carson Wentz plays well and they decide to punt on JJ McCarthy for another season after using the 10th pick in the draft, I'd be stunned because then organizationally you're not giving up, but you're now saying we're 2 years in, fast forwarding to next summer, and we have no idea whether or not this kid can play. And in this day and age where any rookie wants to get paid after year number 3, or anyone on a rookie contract wants to get paid after year number 3. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Personally, I can't see it happening. Speaking of guys who got paid at quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa got paid at quarterback, and they were hanging in there for a little bit yesterday. In the end, they lose, and they are 0-2, and they fall to the Patriots. And I'm going to say it right now, they're going to be 0-3 because this week they are on the road on a short week on Thursday Night Football, and they are at Buffalo. That's it. Just the Bills, who were 2-0 and blew the Jets out of the water this past Sunday. There was a banner over the stadium, and the game was in Miami yesterday. It said "Fire Greer," as in fire Chris Greer, and "Fire McDaniel," as in Mike McDaniel, who Charles, after the game, said, I'm going to read here, I think if I worry about my job security, then I won't be doing my job, and I think that inherently is against all things that I believe in. I just want to say right now, and I've said this before, I do not sit here on this show or any show and advocate for a coach to be fired. However, the Dolphins are one of those teams that we have circled for months now, saying this is going to go badly. Nothing there seems to be going right. And now they're 0-2, and Tua is getting sacked 5 times, including on back-to-back plays there on that final possession where he concedes there were communication issues getting the play in and getting the personnel on the field to get the play dialed up, and nothing is working. It is getting late early.
Yeah, and look, here's the thing with Tua. He's had one expanse of his career where he played well. He's had one season, right? I mean, you go back to 2023. He's basically had 1 year where you said he met expectations. He truly, the year that Mike McDaniel first got in there, fresh offense, fresh look, confidence. Mike McDaniel did nothing but pump confidence into him constantly to get him where he needed to go. And then you saw, though, at the end of that season, they fell on their face. You go to Kansas City in the freezing cold game, and I don't think they've ever been the same since. I don't think this team's ever been right since. You've had the specter of concussions that have constantly hung over Tua. I still think there's questions about, his overall arm strength. I think he can be an accurate quarterback. You see, he doesn't look comfortable right now with Tyreek Hill. The two of them do not seem to be getting along right now in the franchise. When you just look at sort of the body language and the times where, Tua has missed Tyreek Hill on plays, and Tyreek Hill is certainly not holding back and being demonstrative in terms of, his displeasure. And then frankly, look, I want to say about Mike McDaniel, again, and I'm with you, I don't advocate for anybody to be fired ever. That's the worst. That's the worst day in your life as a football person. Whenever you're a coach or a general manager or a quarterback and you lose your job, that's awful. Now that said, Mike McDaniel does not look like the same guy to me at the podium that we have seen historically with the Miami Dolphins. He looks deflated. He looks like the losing has really taken a toll on him, and I just don't see the creativity. Remember, early on with the Dolphins, it was all about this creativity. He had come from the 49ers. There were all these stories about how, he was the run game guru for Kyle Shanahan. He would give Kyle Shanahan run game planning. Kyle Shanahan, it would take a day for Kyle Shanahan to figure it all out and look at it. And, the wizardry, I don't see that there right now with Mike McDaniel and the Miami Dolphins. And I think there is a good reason why he is on the hot seat there, because it's not just about you haven't met the standard, but the standard now is fading that he set when he first arrived.
And you said, I don't think you're wrong, that they haven't been the same since that Chiefs loss. For me, though, it's a little bit different. I don't think they've been the same since Tua suffered that concussion against the Bills in week 2 last year. Since then, Tua just doesn't look like a comfortable quarterback, as you said. His ADOT, his average depth of target, has just plummeted. Like, he used to be a guy that he doesn't have the biggest arm in the world, but he would push it downfield. We all remember him throwing deep to Waddle or
he would
Tyreek Hill.
He would hold the ball. Right. Yeah.
Right. He would be a guy that would hold the ball, take chances downfield, and fireworks happened. We all remember the shootout against the Ravens week 1 in 2023, the 70 burger they put on the Broncos. He has not been the same quarterback since. And I hate to be like, well, a concussion made him that sucks, because it's terrible for his life that he suffered these concussions. I get that. But if we're looking at football wise, he hasn't been the same guy since that last concussion. He's just a quarterback that looks like he just wants to get rid of the ball. And I understand it. I really do. And that trickles down to the rest of the team. That's why Tyreek Hill isn't happy with him, because he's not getting the ball downfield. Mike McDaniel looks like a defeated man because he's got to call a different offense. Jonnu Smith was the crux of their offense last year. I mean, come on. Like this, and even to your point, in 2023, when Tua played really, really well, what was the narrative about the Dolphins that season? They beat one team with a winning record all year. They were
Right.
paper champions that year. And I think some of that caught up to them. I think Tua's concussions have affected how he plays the game. And now it's just, they had a players only meeting after one game. Like this is the ship
Which
be
is a
sinking,
record.
boys.
No one's
Like,
ever done.
It's, oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
no one's ever
Like,
done.
it is going so bad right now. And like you said, Mike McDaniel looks like he has no confidence. It just, there's nothing good about the Dolphins right now. I think they've had 13 possessions against him on defense and have given up points on 11 of them. Like the defense stinks. The offense isn't the same. McDaniel looks like he has no confidence anymore. Tua doesn't. Like there's just nothing good about the Dolphins right now.
You want the stat there, Frank? Here it is. The Dolphins have allowed
Please do.
points. And there's a Colts side to this as well. We'll get to them in a second. But the Dolphins have now allowed points on 12 consecutive opponent drives dating back to Week 18 of last year. It is the longest such streak by any team since at least 1993. So 10 straight drives here to start this season, and then the 2 final drives of last season. 12 consecutive drives. And as for the players only meeting, I know some people, maybe Dolphins fans, raising their hands saying, well, the Ravens defense had a dinner last Monday to figure things out. A couple of the members of the Ravens defense I spoke to said, no. We had been planning to meet for dinner. It was like, we were going to get together for a meal. We just, at that meal, talked things out after giving up 240 yards in the fourth quarter to Josh Allen. And clearly they figured things out. But to your point, Charles, about like Jonnu Smith, they gave him away. And then Darren Waller was going to be your backup plan. Like, I love Darren Waller on a personal level, but you couldn't rely realistically on Darren Waller to be healthy and ready to be out there week in, week out, and he is still yet to see the field. There have been some moves over the last couple of years where you scratch your head with this team, and Stephen Ross has never been anyone who has been patient. Like, asking it, hey, is Stephen Ross a patient owner? No. But with this group right now, he has been patient. You have to wonder how long that patience lasts. I think they're going 0-3. After that, it's the Jets and the Panthers. They have a couple of winnable games there. But if they're 0-3 and they look bad against the Jets and the Panthers, doesn't that change things?
It almost has
Yeah.
to, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
If you're even 1-4, definitely 0-5. Like Charles said, nobody's dancing trying to get anybody fired around here, but it is a fact of life in the NFL. And at this point, like if you had to guess at this point, and weird things have happened, like it's early in the season, it's only 0-2. But if I had to guess right now, I don't think Greer's around next year. I don't think McDaniel's around next year. I don't even know if Tua's around next year. I don't think Tyreek is around. Like this just looks like 2026 Dolphins is a total reset. Like there's a long time to get out of this skid, but ooh, it looks ugly right now.
And let's
All right,
not
let's
forget
move on.
too,
Go ahead.
real quick. I want to make sure I inject this real quick. Stephen Ross was the guy who had Tom Brady
Right.
allegedly on a boat illegally trying to get him there. He's the guy who allegedly had Sean Payton lined up to be his next head coach after
they were
Brian
punished for it,
Flores.
so it's beyond allegedly.
Yeah. Okay. So beyond allegedly,
Okay.
we can go ahead and
Been
say it
convicted.
happened.
Yes.
We know
Convicted.
he's an owner who the penchant to want to win. He's shown it, right? So that kind of shows where this is going.
All right. We thought that the patience was going to end after a Giants loss in Dallas to the Cowboys for Russell Wilson, and that Jaxson Dart would be in there week number 3. A funny thing happened. Russell went back to like bombs away, uncorked the deep ball, Russell, and threw for 450 bleeping yards and 3 touchdowns. Yet they still lost because Brandon Aubrey is like a superhero weapon at kicker. And I was watching this in the press box in Baltimore after that game ended. There was no doubt that he was making a 64-yard field goal. I mean, it was like easy gas. It was like a chip shot extra point for that guy. But eventually they lose. But look at the stat line. He goes 30 of 41 for 450 and 3. If you started Russell Wilson this week in fantasy, you did not lose. But the Giants lost, and so where are we? There's no way you bench Russell Wilson this week, right, Frank?
I know you were going to direct that at
Come
me
on.
because, yes, I have been
I did it
saying
specifically.
Jaxson Dart needs to start. And look, I didn't see this. The one thing I'll give Russ is that he always could throw the deep ball. And my goodness, here's how I look at it. It's not a cop-out for me, but it is. I know Charles is going to give me a hard time. I just think the Cowboys are that bad. Like, I just think the Cowboys defense might be really, really, really bad. They were yesterday for sure. But kudos to Russ. He's had an unbelievable career. I do think Dart is going to start games at some point this season, but I think Russell Wilson heading into the Monday night games of week 1 leads the NFL in passing yards. Like we talked about Jaxson Dart speeding up the calendar. Like he's got to start sooner than we think. Russ has just pushed that back. Like now Dayball could be like, nah, the kid can sit for a while. Russ had that big 450 yards. Like, so kudos to Russ. I've always loved Russell Wilson. He's the only good quarterback my alma mater is ever going to produce. So I've watched his career. He's had a great career. And kudos to him for a throwback the clock game. Like that was awesome. And it stinks that the Giants lost that game because they totally deserved to win it.
Yeah, and as Andrew said, they win that game if the Cowboys just don't have the most unbelievable kicker who can just roll out there and you got to make a 64-yarder.
Make it. We all were like, oh yeah, 64, he's going to hit this.
We knew he was going to make it.
They knew he was going to make it. That's the crazy thing is that it's like we're sitting there like, this guy's got to kick a 64-yard field goal, and they're like, yeah. And then when he kicks it, you're like, oh, he could have made that from like 70 plus. Like that clearly, there's no doubt.
Player at Notre Dame. He didn't play college football. Like this is an unbelievable story. Brandon Aubrey's unbelievable.
His story, by the way, brief aside, can I tell that story real quick for those who know the Brandon Aubrey story? So he played soccer at Notre Dame and never played football. He then played professional soccer. I don't know if he was ever in the top division of MLS, but he was in the second, whatever. He played professional soccer, got a paycheck, got a real paycheck, was a real soccer player, and then was working in finance and was sitting at home a couple of years ago, and his wife said to him, you think you could kick a football? I was like, I could try. Yeah. And he went out to the backyard, he kicked a football, then he hired a kicking coach. Next thing you know, he ended up in the UFL, and now, or the XFL, one of them, I get them mixed up, and now he's nailing 64-yarders with ease.
One of the best kickers we've ever seen.
And his coach is going, we'll trust him from 70. That's Brandon Aubrey.
Yeah, that's and he is listen, I'm telling you right now, if I don't want to get on a whole aside about Brandon Aubrey, but if the Cowboys were like, hey, we're going to make him available, teams would probably roll up a first round plus.
49ers would be like, oh God, how many first
would you give up for Brandon Aubrey?
He is a kicker you would give up a first round plus for. I think there's no question in my mind.
You really think so?
And yes, absolutely. A guy who can kick like that from that distance.
He's a weapon.
He's a game winner. It's funny to me, and I've had this conversation in the past, and here we go, we're getting off to the side, but like kickers win. They could be the difference in 2, 3, 4 wins for you, maybe more. What player, aside from a quarterback, can truly be a difference that consistently over the course of a season? If you have a kicker for 10 years who is Brandon Aubrey, I mean, I grew up in Detroit, Jason Hansen, right? I mean, this is, I remember once asking, Hansen had a 20-year career for the Lions, and I remember someone from the front office once telling me that's their second best draft pick ever other than Barry Sanders, because he was a kicker who annihilated it for 20 years. Yeah. You don't get players like that in the NFL.
Justin Tucker was automatic at one
guy who
flat out won games, week in, week out.
So, but to turn this back to Russ, I will just say this about Russ. Okay, right. He should have had this win here. I think having Malik Neighbors it's a great thing for him because it matches up still really well with Russ's skill set ultimately. And as you said, Andrew, I think the coaching staff and the front office sits there and says, actually, this is great for us. This is what we needed. We needed this guy to go out and have a game like this.
You're right. Yep.
Now we can just go ahead and say, yeah, let's go ahead. We can keep rolling him out and keep Jaxson Dart in the garage for a few more games. And this buys them time, which is exactly what they needed. I'm sure they would have liked to have had that win. They should have had that win, and it was not Russ's fault. Ultimately, losing that game in overtime, it should have ended
interception
in
regulation. Bad interception in overtime.
But Frank, it should have ended in regulation. Yes, it was not should have ended in regulation.
Yes.
Right.
True. So would the New York Post headline be Giants dodge Dart conversation? See what we did there?
He'll be here all week, ladies and gentlemen.
Now, if you're younger, Google it. It used to be a car. way back in the day. I am too young to have driven one. So that's how old that car is. Now don't Google how old I am or how old any of us are. Coming up on Inside Coverage. Oh, by the way, Daniel Jones is still young. Can he turn what's going on in Indianapolis into a massive paycheck next March? Charles will tell you how big that check may be after this on Inside Coverage. You're watching Inside Coverage or listening. Regardless, we thank you for taking part in this show on a Monday after week 2 as we wrap it up and get ready for week number 3. Andrew Siciliano, Frank Schwab, and Charles Robinson. I'm going to put a picture on the screen, gentlemen. I know you know who it is because we talked about it during the break, but I just want the people at home to answer this. Who is this man that we are now putting on the screen? He's wearing a Colts jersey. He has a hat on backwards. He has his fist raised, clearly suggesting he did something worthy of praise. Does anyone know who this is? Anyone? I'll answer it for you. That is Rigoberto Sanchez. He is the punter, Frank, for the Indianapolis Colts. He has been on the field this year, but only to hold for kicker Spencer Schrader, who nailed a 45-yard game winner to keep the Colts undefeated. They are 2-0. Rigoberto Sanchez has not punted this year because the Colts haven't needed to punt. That is how good they are.
At least he's out there holding, Andrew. At least he's not totally stealing checks. Like that's good for him to get out there. He feels like he did well putting the shoulder pads on at least. Like maybe he doesn't week 3. He's like, whatever, I'm not going to need him. And of all the teams, like this is the first team in the Super Bowl era to go to their first 2 games without punting. The Indianapolis Colts, like I could have given you 25 guesses before the season.
These Indianapolis Colts.
Crazy.
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. If you told me the Dolphins a couple of years ago when they were scoring 70 points on the Broncos right out of the gate and, they were ridiculous, maybe. Or some other offensive juggernaut. Maybe the greatest show on turf with Kurt Warner and Marshall Faulk and Torrey Holt and Isaac Bruce. And nope, the 2025 Indianapolis Colts 2 games and have yet to punt. And this is a big if, Charles, but if Daniel Jones can keep this up or at least keep playing at a high level, he's going to cash in. And you're writing about that this week on Yahoo.
Yeah, I mean, this is actually a story that we've been down this road 3 times in recent years. Geno Smith in Seattle. We were like, when's it going to give out? When's it going to give out? No, the man, he's playing well, but come on, we know Geno's history. There's going to be a rollback. And there has been a rollback since he got it in gear in Seattle. Now, obviously, he's with the Las Vegas Raiders. Geno Smith has been able to sustain himself as a quality starter in the NFL. We saw it with Baker Mayfield, right? Baker Mayfield goes through a multitude of teams. He goes, Cleveland Browns, Carolina Panthers, Los Angeles Rams. He gets to the Buccaneers. I remember heading into his first season with the Buccaneers, I got asked on a radio show, what's going to happen? And I said, nothing. No guy goes through 4 franchises in this short a period of time in his career and all of a sudden materializes as a top-end NFL player. I was wrong. I look like a complete idiot. And Baker Mayfield went through that season, signs a 1-year deal, bets on himself, just like Daniel Jones did with the Indianapolis Colts, and said, I'm going to go here. I'm going to establish myself as a starter. We'll work out a long-term deal afterward. And all we did that first season is sit there and go, when's he going to fall apart? We just waited, and it didn't happen. And then Sam Darnold with the Minnesota Vikings last season. It was the same deal. We're like, when is this going to fall apart? The wheels are going to come off. Sam Darnold's not going to be a long-term starter somewhere. He's not going to land a franchise quarterback deal. He ends up in Seattle with a 3-year deal for over $100 million. It's early, right? So early with Daniel Jones, but you have this same feeling where we're like, this is not sustainable, right? I mean, like this can't be Daniel Jones turning a corner. And yet when I think about it, some of us, and maybe not me, but I do remember talking about it in the offseason, looked at the Indianapolis Colts roster and said, it's not bereft of talent. If they could just get a quarterback in there who can be serviceable, who can go out and not be a turnover machine, who can complete over 60% of his passes, that Colts team could actually be the team we don't see coming in the 2025 season. Well, through 2 games, I mean, I don't think we expected this, but I don't see Anthony Richardson getting that job back anytime soon. And there are just too many components of that Colts team that have come out of cold storage. Michael Pittman, welcome back. Jonathan Taylor, welcome back. I mean, there's like multiple players that the Colts were just like, hey, they're great again. They're good players again. I'm telling you, Daniel Jones, if he keeps this up, you're going to see him landing one of those Mayfield Darnold type deals after this season, probably 3 years in the $100 million range, which, let's be honest, was unthinkable that someone was going to hand Daniel Jones another 50, 60, maybe even $70 million in guaranteed money. This could be how this breaks down for Daniel Jones in Indianapolis.
All right, so just to clarify the numbers we gave earlier about not punting, it had never been done through 2 games in the Super Bowl era. So think of all your historic offensive performances. No team in the Super Bowl era, and this is year 60 of the Super Bowl era. I know, kids, that's a bit confusing. It's year 106 of the NFL. There was a time and an era, and there were Hall of Famers before we called the championship game the Super Bowl. There was life before the Super Bowl. But in these 60 years of NFL history, no team has ever done that. And I'm not a big passer rating fan, but obviously it tells a story. Daniel Jones is the 4th player in Colts franchise history, Frank, with a 100 passer rating in the first 2 games of the season. 2 of them are in the Hall of Fame, Peyton and Johnny Unitas. And the other one is Jim Harbaugh in 95.
Wow.
So just throw Daniel Jones
maybe Burt Jones
into the Peyton Manning and Johnny Unitas conversation.
It's so ridiculous. By the way, I want some kudos for not jumping in on Charles' complete idiot comment. I let that go. It was a batting practice fastball. Should have got on that. Yeah, it's true. I just will say,
we got 9.5 minutes if you want to do it.
With your point, Charles, about the Colts, they were 8-9 last season with the 31st best passer rating in the NFL. Because you're like, okay, they're average. Maybe they can do much better than this. And Daniel Jones has been far better than average. I was like, all right, week 1, you face the 2025 Dolphins. I'm not going to get too impressed over that. You look good, but whatever, play a real defense. Right. The Broncos are going to get you. The Broncos, I think, still have a top 5 defense in the NFL. And Daniel Jones looked really good against them. I don't look at the Broncos any differently. I'm just like, wow, Daniel Jones is a thing now. Like, we're going to be talking. This isn't the last conversation we're going to have about his contract. We're going to be talking about, did the Colts need to franchise tag him? Did the Colts need to extend him for, like you said, 3 years for however many million? It's crazy how good of a start he's gotten off to. Now, we're saying the same thing about the Saints and Derek Carr after 2 games last year. Remember that. Like, 2 games is a small sample size, but the fact that he did it against the Broncos is really, really impressive. This isn't just beating up the Carolina Panthers like last year, like Derek Carr.
Yeah. Sorry to jump in. You mentioned Derek Carr. We did not include his name in the conversation earlier about quarterbacks that teams could call if they needed somebody. Derek did concede last week that he hasn't totally shut the door and that he is working out. So if quarterback injuries continue to mount, I'm just telling you right now, don't forget about the Derek Carr conversation, because we will be having, I guarantee you, that conversation. Want to get to the Lions and the Bears. A couple of teams that lost, a couple of teams that were hanging their heads after week number 1, a couple of teams questioning their identity. This was the Ben Johnson Bowl in Detroit, and this was ugly. This was one-sided. This was a 52-21 game in which the Lions clearly got right, ran it up, went for it on 4th down, celebrated with a fumble bum thing. Remember the whole Ben Johnson thing last year where Jared Goff was falling down?
That was a great
Bears.
That was
the
so great.
The Lions had a celebration in the end zone where they choreographed that entire thing. This was clearly personal. So we could look at, not like we don't like you, Ben Johnson, personal, but just like we need to prove to ourselves that we're still a good team, and who better to do it against than you, the Bears, and Ben Johnson. There are 2 ways to look at this. Charles, why don't you take the Lions side of it? Because they woke up, they proved to themselves, we're not dead. Frank, the Bears side of it is, wow, we're looking in the mirror again, and we thought Monday night was bad. This was even worse. Charles, you go first.
Yeah, I mean, the Lions, you could see it over the course of the week. They were chippy. They were not comfortable with how they played in Green Bay, but then also the questions that came out of it. You know, I wrote about this coming out of Sunday. There was an exchange between Dan Campbell and a local reporter where the local reporter basically said, can't you just run the same offense you did last year? And this was after one game. And Dan Campbell's response was basically, and I'm paraphrasing here, you really think we're that different than we were from last year after one game? Go back and look at the tape. And that wasn't Dan Campbell saying, go back and look at the tape. It was basically Dan Campbell saying, F you. You're wrong. And I think for the Lions to come back out in this game and show once again, we can be dominant at the line of scrimmage. We can run the ball. We can have big explosives down the field with our offense. We can dictate tempo. And then in the fourth quarter, when it's 4th and 4 at the goal line, we're going to go ahead and we're going to throw a touchdown pass, and you're going to think we're running it up. And that's just how we operate. I think the Lions felt good. They got their mojo back, and it is the first week coming out, and I probably bought into it a little bit too. It was just so unbelievable. I mean, it was like, again, I said it was like season 3 of Ted Lasso. Like Nate the Great leaves, takes his offense with him, and Coach Lasso and his team completely falls apart. That's no, I liked it. I mean, come on, that's how we were treating Detroit coming out of 1 week of football. All of a sudden, we're like, they just can't do it anymore. And I was buying into it a little bit. Yeah, they put that to bed pretty quickly. And now the real measuring stick, though, comes up next week against the Ravens.
Okay, I was not going to take Ted Lasso slander. If you were going to question the final season of the original Dexter, I would have accepted that. I would have accepted that.
No, but it felt like that. It felt like that's what we were getting again, was you get the wonderkind assistant leaves, and then everybody says, the coach can't do it anymore. I mean, it was never happening like that in Detroit. And let's see now how they fare against Baltimore.
And then we have the Bears, Frank.
Take. Yeah, I do have another Lions take. I'm going to U-turn that in a second, but I'll get to the Bears first.
Okay.
The Bears have given up 73 points in the last 5 quarters. That is absolutely awful. They're in a lot of trouble here.
And now they don't have Jalen Johnson.
Right. A lot of injuries. TJ Edwards went out in that game. I get that, but this defense is just not good enough, and the offense hasn't been good enough to overcome it. Rome Odunze did play well yesterday. I thought Caleb was fine, but if your defense is going to be this bad, and you look back to the Monday night opener, and you're like, oh yeah, J.J. McCarthy, look what he did in week 2, and the Bears couldn't stop him in the fourth quarter when they had to. The Bears just might not be a very good football team. Again, the defense will get healthier. Maybe they get better. Caleb will get more comfortable in the offense. You saw some flashes of it. You saw some stuff. That'll all get better. I don't think the Bears are going to be one of those teams that goes 2-15 or anything, but they're not sniffing a playoff berth if their defense is going to play like this. Now with the Lions, I look at it this way. Lions looked like the Lions yesterday. Scored 52 points. Amon-Ra St. Brown is open everywhere. You know what my takeaway from was that? The Green Bay Packers are the best team in football. The Green Bay Packers have played 2 games and absolutely blasted the number 1 scoring offense in the NFL last year and the number 5 scoring offense in the NFL last year. I think the Green Bay Packers, I'm doing power rankings as I do every week. Spoiler alert, Green Bay's my number 1 team because they have looked the best out of 2 games. I don't think there's anything wrong with the Lions at all. Look, no, they're not quite the same without Ben Johnson and the interior offensive line. I get that. I don't have any worries about the Lions. I watched that game and I just kept thinking, the Packers are the best team in football. They had the best defense in football. They proved that basically shutting out the Lions. They scored 1 garbage touchdown at the end.
It's not a hot take,
and then
Frank.
The Commanders.
Stop patting yourself on the back.
No,
it's not
I'm just saying. I don't think
everybody knows Green Bay's good.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything wrong with the Lions at all. I think the Lions are going to be right there, and the Packers Lions is going to be just like Packers or Lions Vikings from last year, where we just have this.
Lions get the Ravens this week. Sorry to cut you off, Frank. Lions get the Ravens this week. They're on the road in Baltimore. I saw the Ravens up close. They're still a very good team, despite the fact that Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry were held to 36 yards on the ground on 13 carries, which is kind of absurd. And the Packers now, because they played on TNF and they had that early mini bye, they had, Matt LaFleur said on Monday morning, he goes, I think I've watched our game now 5 times. And there's the trap there that you almost overanalyze, almost self-scout, but they're 2-0, and now they go to Cleveland to face a Browns team that is not getting any push in the run game, and just the offense isn't working at all. I mean, the Browns went, if you take the second half against the Bengals and the first half against the Ravens, which is not how it works, but play along. So those 4 quarters against Joe Burrow, Chase Brown, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers, and Lamar Jackson, they gave up 88 yards, the Browns defense. 88 yards over those 4 quarters. They are 0-2. because they can't score. And now that is who the Packers go on the road and face in week 3. So, Frank, I think your power rankings.
Packers might start 8-0.
I think you might have something.
The Packers might start 8-0.
Yeah.
Like they have 6 winnable games coming up. I'm just saying.
Frank is calling from Wisconsin on line 1. Fantastic. Frank's power rankings coming out soon. The Chiefs, the flip side of that, Charles, are 0-2 for the first time under Patrick Mahomes. Worse yet, they have lost 3 straight for the first time under Patrick Mahomes. That had never happened. And yes, I'm including the Super Bowl. That is one. And then these two are obviously the first 2 weeks of the season make it 3. If Travis Kelce had caught the ball, it's a different game. He didn't. He saw the rookie safety, Andrew Makuba, lingering, and he bobbled the ball. Makuba picked it off. It's a totally different game here. There's a couple of different ways to go. I think there's a conversation to be had here in our final minutes about the tush push and how the Eagles are now running it 12% of the time. That's what they did. They ran it 7 times on Sunday. That's 12% of their offensive snaps. But, Charles, the idea that the Chiefs are 0-2, it's not the end of the world here. Yeah, they'd be a different team without Xavier Worthy, but the offense has kind of got nothing.
Yeah, not an elite offense. It's just not. Chiefs offense, not elite.
Not at all.
Right now. It's not. It's, I think we are seeing a team. They have not resolved offensive line issues. They can't run the football. I think Patrick Mahomes is leading by a wide margin, leading the team in rushing, which is really scary when you think about that. From a wide receiver standpoint, I get it. You're waiting for Rashee Rice to show back up. Xavier Worthy gets taken out by Travis Kelce in an unfortunate accident in week 1. And then it's just like a squad of guys who now you're hoping step into expanded roles and can really provide something. Tyquan Thornton, obviously gives you a deep touchdown pass. But I mean, for all intents and purposes, there just aren't any offensive weapons on the field for them right now. And I'm staring at the Chiefs front office and I'm saying, like, when the Eagles knew they couldn't run the football, what did they do? They sat and they said, you know what, let's go get Saquon Barkley. Let's go find an elite level running back and add them to the offensive mix and see if maybe that can change the dynamic for us on offense. If I'm the Chiefs, I'm looking at Miami and I'm saying, let's call and ask about Devon Achane in Miami. Like, if Miami tanks out and we're headed toward the trade deadline, let's go see if we can get an explosive running back to put in this backfield, because you can't have Patrick Mahomes trying to carry this load the way that he is right now. It's just not going to be an elite level offense if you have to, funnel your running game through Patrick Mahomes scrambling. It's very, very worrisome, I think, for the Chiefs right now. And I'm just going to say it right here. If you're expecting Rashee Rice to step back through that door and Xavier Worthy to come back and this all of a sudden turn into the greatest show on turf, you're wagering a lot. I'm not saying it can't happen, but you're wagering a lot right now, just expecting 2 guys to step back on the field and completely transform this team offensively.
I disagree. I think they're going to be really good. When Rashee Rice and Worthy come back week 7, it's going to change. You add a true bona fide number 1 in Rice and a guy who complements him really well in Worthy, assuming Worthy's healthy, which I figure he will be. He was practicing last week. So I think he'll be ramped up by week 7 and fine. The problem I have with the Chiefs, they have some tough games coming up. This might turn into a 2-4 type of hole. And it's not like when, the Patriots during the Brady era, they got off to some slow starts and ended up winning the AFC East every year, because the other 3 teams were just trash during that era.
Frank,
that's
the wide receivers don't protect
this year.
Frank, the wide receivers don't protect Patrick Mahomes. Okay, that offensive line's not right. They don't protect Patrick Mahomes, right? At what point does he break? Right.
I know, and that is worrisome.
I get it. I understand there's high level guys coming back in the fold, but you cannot resolve. We talked about this on this show. You cannot resolve offensive line problems in the middle of the season. It's impossible to do. It's a problem that's going to be there from here to the end of the season.
I do get that. And
they went out and drafted Josh Simmons. He's played well. Josh Simmons has played well, but he's one man there. Right. And you're right. Mahomes is the ultimate deodorant. Mahomes is the one guy who, over the last every years, has been able to overcome every other deficiency or inefficiency in an offense or just on that roster in general. And let's give Steve Spagnuolo his credit, the way that he has coached that defense up the last couple of years as well. But Mahomes can't cover up everything, and they don't have that dynamic runner. And they don't have that dynamic outside threat right now either. They're getting the Giants this week on Sunday Night Football. I mean, do we agree they beat the Giants?
Oh my God!
Maybe.
Yeah.
I
What?
guess.
Really?
In New York.
They should, but
man.
it's still a little tricky.
Are you saying they're 0-3 and lose to Russell Wilson in prime time?
Their defense.
Is that what you're saying?
Their defense is still.
No.
Their defense is still.
Yes.
A top shelf
Very
defense,
good,
man.
very good,
Like
very
their defense
It's just
should go
tricky,
out
that's
and
all.
devour
Should.
Russ. Okay, I'm sorry. Their defense should absolutely obliterate Russ. I'm just saying it. If they don't, they don't. But that
And
defense
then I can
alone
talk about
should be able to
Jaxson
beat
Dart
the
next
Giants.
week.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they should. But,
Let's
I mean,
agree.
look, they got the Lions coming up.
That-
They got the Ravens coming up. They got some losable games coming up.
They do. But if we are sitting here a week from right now talking about the Chiefs losing on Sunday night in New York to Russell Wilson of the Giants with or without Andrew Thomas, I mean, that's a big part of this equation as well. With James Hudson losing his mind at left tackle and yelling at people on the sideline of the first quarter, if they're 0-3 after that, this is an entirely different conversation.
Correct.
Very different.
Yeah, it
But
ain't
hey,
going to happen.
that's why
But
we're
yeah, the Chiefs don't look right, and the AFC West is not going to give them any favors. The Chargers and Broncos are going to be pretty good teams this year.
Exactly. What's their deal, as Pete Carroll once said of the Chargers. All right, that's going to do it. That's Frank Schwab. That's Charles Robinson. We are here every Monday through Thursday. This is inside coverage, the how and the why of any and everything you need to know around the National Football League. My name is Andrew Siciliano. So long, everybody.